As Liliana, it's an honor to read with you and an honor to share this with those of you who came out. Poets, you know, it's like, this is a large audience. If we were fiction writers, this, you know, we'd be disappointed. Never disappointed to read poetry for anyone that makes the effort to come and listen and to be engaged. So if you have questions, I'm just going to read a few poems because if you have any questions, any thoughts about not just our work, but just this thing that helps build literary community, right? Always happy to hear that. So I'll start with a poem that's not published. It's an older poem, a memory poem from my first trip as a young boy to Mexico City. My parents thought this was important that we go see, you know, our roots, right? I remember very little about that trip except the inside of a mouth of a fire eater who was standing on a street corner, right? So this poem is titled Receta, which translates as either recipe or prescription. Receta. This is how to make a living in Mexico City. Pool the gasoline in your blistered, moon-cratered mouth. Do not swallow. If a little goes down, don't panic. Feel it scorch the parched column of throat. Throw your head back. Look skyward. They love that touch of drama. Forget that the fouled pavement will be your pillow one more night. Do not let them see you ignite the lurid display. Watch the brilliance bloom. Hear the traffic slow as the plume ascends. If it rises high enough, you will taste the extravagance of warm atole tonight. Listen to the raucous music of car horns accompanying the burst and crackle. You will not beg. Let the fire speak for you. So here's an apology, an abject, deeply felt apology. The book that I'm supposed to have tonight, the second book, has been delayed by the publisher, and I apologize for that, but I promise I will come back with books in hand when it is out, and to all of those of you who made the effort to be here, you will get it discounted, like a deep discount when you come back. I promise, okay? But I want to read a few poems from that book, which is called, it's a hard title to say because it's got the little arroba in Spanish, right? The at sign. So it's Cuenta, right? With that sign at the end. That has all kinds of resonances, I hope. Cuenta and cuento. So this is one of the title poems, Cuenta. And it starts with something from a newspaper article. And here is the quote. A mass grave of unidentified migrants were uncovered in Brooks County, Texas. Anthropologists working at the site found many instances of multiple bodies in trash bags, in shopping bags, or simply buried in the dirt. The anthropologists were working at Sacred Heart Burial Park in Falfurrias, Texas. According to county officials, a local funeral home, Funeraria del Ángel, was paid $450 per body to handle the migrants found by local law enforcement officials. Article in the International Business Times, June 21st, 2014. And the poem. Who are these scabbed seraphs that watch over the atrocity? Who dry-eyed and eager build another city of pain, grouted with their mix of ash and tears. Stripped of gilt harps, they pluck the souls of campesinos to the unforgiving beat of death rattles, dried, hollow gourds. Their diaphanous garb, charred by hellish flame, they wear robes sewn in rancid rooms. In God we trust, they say. But his messengers arrived with trash bags, shopping bags. No dignity in this. Dignity from the Latin word for worth. So they sang their glad tidings in these forsaken scapes. So we were returned to dust, dressed in the attire of refuse, of dirt. So we were laid in earth. His sacred heart didn't bleed. It throbbed wantonly, a crossing signal for their crowded wagons, chuffing their way to eternity. The fare, a filthy 450. The book that you will see has a lot of found text in it from all sorts of sources, right? Snippets of film script, as in this very short poem, which is verbatim, and it's titled Script. We really stole Texas, didn't we, Mr. Benedict? I mean, away from Mexico. They took it off a bunch of ignorant Mexicans. Dialogue from the movie Giant. And this poem, Deed, I love that one of the poems you read, Liliana, has the repetition, right? Which comes, historians tell us from ancient tradition, right? When someone was sick in the tribe, in the village, the shaman, the priest, the poet would come and just, say these incantatory verses over the ill person, and things would change. So I think poetry has still those aspirations, right? That you say it and people, you remember something, the rhythm or the word that's repeated, and things change, right? So this is called Deed. This land, say res. This land, say barrio. This land, say township. This land, say favela. This land, say camp. This land, say underpass. This land, say colony. This land, say ghetto. This land was made for you, para ti, hijo. And those are from Cuenta. And by the way, that poem, which I will leave some with you, Becky, if that's okay. I was very fortunate. The manuscript, before it was to be published, was selected by the Center for Book Arts in New York as a runner-up, and as that consolation prize, they did a hand letterpress of that poem that I just read, and it's a very lovely little card, so I will leave a few with you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And yeah. Let me read just a few poems from Brazos, and then happy to answer any questions or listen to any comments that you have. My partner will tell you I'm a pretty big film buff, but film from the golden era of Hollywood, maybe? Yeah. So this was inspired by not an entire movie necessarily, but a very famous scene that you hopefully will recognize in the first stanza of the poem. And the title is Eternidad. Even as strict body counts invaded a dream fogged by mushroom clouds and deep night assaults, Deborah Carr and Burt Lancaster surrendered to an advancing lust that melded them into one groping, gasping mass, their backs sand-speckled, their bodies glistening on a spread of beach so pure and wide that it can't be confined to the vast expanse of screen at the faded movie palace on Soledad. Here, the scene disintegrates, their hunger atomized into particles of dust swimming in the projector's light, drifting into dark, narrow places where the truth of sex is this: a rushed flow in the alley behind a vacant garage, or there in the dimly lit park toilet, or here in rows of stained theater seats where spewed desire and petals of torn tickets float to eternity. So one of the things, and Terry, I apologize, I think you've heard this poem before, but for those who haven't. So I lived in New York City. I was very proud to call New York City home for 15 years. I'm from San Antonio and live there now, but for 15 years, New York was home. And friends would always write and say, who have you seen? Or they would call, who have you seen? And I'd always say, I've seen lots of people, but I knew what they were asking. It's like, who famous have you seen, right? Who have you seen? Who have you seen? So these are 3 very short poems that are pulled together, and they're based on truth, on fact. 3 famous individuals that I had close encounters with while living there. So it's called Manhattan Triptych. 1. David Hockney in an elevator. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, staring straight ahead. It's a rapidly descending dream of blonde California boys glistening in ample pools and showers, their beauty dispelling the eastern gray. 2. John Kennedy Jr. standing in line at the bagel shop, Broadway and 80th, sesame, salt, raisin, poppy, flustered by his radiance, the salesgirl drops the still warm rings, letting loose a galaxy of seeds, apologies. 3. Leonard Bernstein in orchestra seats at the Met. Verdi's music uncoils in the pit. He sings along, his crunchy basso intrusive. No one shushes. Next to him, a protege, let's say, whose luster rivals the starbursts hovering above. This one also based on fact. I promise this is verbatim as my father and his brother, my uncle Renato, tell the story of what happened to them when they were looking for their first job after World War II. The 2 of them were looking for a job. And just quick preface, my father and his brother were both printers when one could make a living and provide for the family printing, right? Nowadays, when I taught, I used to tell students about printing, and this was a totally foreign concept to them, right? That people actually did that and got paid to do it. So this is called Printer's Devil. And even that term, that was apparently in printing, it was a kind of jargony term for an apprentice. So Printer's Devil. It's one or the other, says the owner of American Printing. I can't hire both. But your ad said 2, Theo reminds him. Theo Renato is a prize-winning pressman. My father, the best in print shop at Lanier High. It's 1945. War is over. And there's a bright gleam in these young brown men's eyes. You can see it, the starburst of possibility that swirls in them. But the owner tells my uncle, the elder, the fixer, just one Pedro, I don't want no trouble. As if together my uncle, my father, and every Chicano like them might spill blood, not ink, might print feisty manifestos instead of hospital invoices, might give new meaning to die cut. It is 1945, and radical acts are few in San Antonio. Thank you, sir. My brother and I will look elsewhere. Theo says this, even though elsewhere is not much better in that oddly peaceful year. So some years ago, I was very privileged to spend a week at a writer's colony in one of the most beautiful places in this country. I mean, it's rarefied territory, north of San Francisco, wine country, And so here you get to sit for a whole week with other poets and writers and make work. And it's like, and I had the privilege of working very closely with the poet Elizabeth Alexander, who was it President Obama's first inaugural poet? I think she was, Elizabeth Alexander. And so I got to work with her, and that was amazing. But in the afternoon when we had a lunch break, we could go into the little town, right? And so you drive through the vineyards, and there was never anyone in them. And I thought, well, who does the work here? And I was told later that, the heat of the afternoon, and I thought, well, that's pretty progressive, you don't have people working in the blazing noontime sun. But came to find out that, the workers move on. It's not that they're not working, they're working in some other field. It's just, I didn't see them there. So this is for them, for those workers, this valley. This valley is filled with ghosts, miraculous multitudes that still the crying child and quiet, restless, aged souls whose ghost hands till tired earth, then harvest and sweep, whose phantom feet memorize labyrinths of lettuce, beet, and grape, whose ghost throats dry with vineyard dust still sing at crimson time, whose ghost hearts beat, though strained, whose ghost eyes weep for what has been. We taste their ghost work, even praise it, but cannot see the brown ghosts with us in this valley. Imprint. Don't leave any marks, he says. Polite sex is all a married man allows. Don't believe his earnest pleas, or that he'll soon leave his spouse, the one who looks for skin-deep clues. Whatever you do, don't grieve when he says it's over. No more clandestine rendezvous. You knew this would come, but still, the sting, it pains you to think you didn't leave your telling mark. And one last poem. So I'm a devoutly secular person these days, but grew up in a strict Mexican Catholic family, which means I listen to a lot of prayers, right? And so this last poem is a kind of a prayer for my saints, the saints of Latin music. And it's called Latino Latina. And the epigraph says, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." Message from the Hopi elders. Saint Tito, halo of glittering timbal, play for us. Divina Celia, salsera sin igual, sway for us. Blessed Richie, hijo del son jarocho, rock and roll for us. Santa Selena, tesoro del Tejano, unfold your soul for us. Revered Desiderio, conguero of the Orishas, make a loud noise for us. Beloved Lola, canto ronco del norteño, be a proud voice for us. Cherished Narciso, padrino del llanto obrero, dip and glide for us. La Lupe querida, cubana complicada, burn a light for us. All you brown saints and angels, sing your songs for us. Whisper our names to a God who longs for us. Thank you. So, just 2 minutes. I hated that